All right, generally what I do is I start with a full log, which are over there. This is honey locust.
And how does it come to you?
It came to me from that tree over there in the field, and the fellow was nice enough to let me have a couple of pieces.
Cool.
But what I'll do is I'll cut a log section of some dimension, and what I'll do is I'll take anchor seal and tin foil on the end grain. So I'll slobber the anchor seal on the end grain. While the anchor seal is still wet, I'll lay over a piece of tin foil, and then I tape it in place, because generally these are stored outside.
Anchor seal brand or any water-soluble log wax?
I use anchor seal because that's what we had at the time, and I bought a 5-gallon unit.
Sure. So do you slather it on thick?
Slather it on thick.
And you don't do anything on the face grain, just on the around the perimeter of a cross grain mold blank.
Yeah.
Got it.
And if it's a log length, it's just the two ends. And that piece, I believe, came from Rhode Island. So that makes it stored 7 to 10 years.
Uh-huh.
So it sticks. This piece here was handled a little bit differently. This is ambrosia maple. This was cut in Connecticut. It was slathered all around with anchor seal, stuffed in a paper bag with its own shavings. This is 20 years old. So once it gets to, you can see that it's already moved. I think, can you?
Oh yeah, sure.
So it's stable now, but I haven't gotten the chance to turn it.
So are you always doing that, turning a rough and then doing a finished turning later?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
The only time I don't rough turn is when I'm turning natural edges, because I don't care where the natural edge goes. But I don't. My preference is a nice flat edge on the top of a turn bowl. This is also a piece of cherry. I'm not sure where this came from. I think it might have come from here. I don't remember. I usually put a date on it.
So why the tin foil? And could you use plastic instead?
You could. Tin foil is for sure nothing's going through it. This piece of madrone on the lathe came to me wrapped in a plastic trash bag, and I made the mistake of thinking that it would be okay to leave it here in the bag. But if you can see around this side, it's cracked up pretty good.
So it had nothing on it, but it was in the trash bag.
That's right, it was raw and in the trash bag.
So the plastic on it now, you put that on, or it?
Yeah, this I put on I just mounted it a couple of days ago, and my idea was to rough turn it and get it into a paper bag with shavings and get it to try to stabilize. But madrone is notoriously cracky. It moves tremendous amounts. This is also a piece of madrone burl. This is a piece that was wrapped in plastic when it was very green, and it got all moldy like that one. And I just cleaned off the mold the other day.
Well, now what did you clean that off with?
I turned it. I didn't put any anchor seal. I just wrapped it back up because I want to turn this right away. Because what I'm after in madrone is I want all that movement and all those odd shapes that you get with madrone.
So you're going to turn that green and let it go from there?
It's still wet. It's not green anymore because it's been a while. Okay, so this is a piece of pin oak. It was cut. I don't know where the green is here. The pith is here. So the log was halved, just set aside, and just threw it into the lathe. When I turned that bowl, I said, gee, that pin oak is pretty nice. I cut it into
It's a red oak, isn't it?
It is a red oak.
Yeah.
I cut it into an octagon and wrapped it in plastic and said I want to save that. So here's a piece of pin oak, I believe, that I put in the shavings in a brown paper with nothing on it. Yeah, this is rough turned.
And how long do you think it's going to sit in the bag before you return it?
I won't return it until late winter, early spring.
So do you date the bag so you know?
I used to, yeah.
No, you don't care.
No, well, this particular piece is not a really great piece because it's got some spalting on it.
Yeah.
It's already started to rot.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of punky areas. You can see the grain on the inside.
What are you going to do with those punky areas?
Well, I'll just stabilize them with super glue. Here's another piece of pin oak which would have benefited from anchor seal. And there's the date. It's still solid wood, but it's gotten all moldy. So I don't know if it'll be any good when I turn it, but I'll turn the mold off and see what's underneath. If it's decent, I'll continue. If not, it's one of those things that goes to the club. Here's a couple other pieces of pin oak. Now these were cut out of pretty big logs. So you can see, cut like that, just a little bit of end grain sealer, and it stayed in good shape.
So there's nothing on it except painted the end grain.
Yep. Just one side.
Uh-huh.
This one had nothing on it.
Uh-huh.
So I got a little bit of checking on that end, but nothing on this end.
Okay, now where are you storing these? Just right in here?
Right here, yeah.
Yeah, anywhere you can put them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Pretty much. These are all black ash.
And how'd you get those?
I buy those.
And then do they come to you wrapped up like that?
No, they'll usually come wrapped in corrugated cardboard, and the fellow will wrap the corrugated cardboard with packing tape. And I usually leave it like that for a time because it'll stabilize. All of these big burls underneath here came that way. And I didn't do anything special other than leave them alone to let them normalize. And then the ash is one of those woods, whether it's burl or straight grain, it dries pretty evenly and quickly. So here's here's one of those burls that came to me green. I just set it aside.
And nothing, it is just stabilized all by itself.
Yep. These are Milo from Hawaii. This box is how they come to me. And so this is Milo. This is how he sends it. And I'll leave it like that because this, again, I paid for this and I want to turn it before anything else.
Huh. So is it wrapped in wax as well as?
No, it's just plastic.
Plastic, there's no anchor seal on there.
Nothing, nope.
And how long do you think that was cut?
I don't know this Milo wood. Haven't used it very much. But it's, he says it's fairly stable, dries well, finishes well in the lathe. Other wood that I got from him is rain tree. And this is the way it came. That rain tree, I did turn a piece of that. And I turned it as it came to me. It was soaking wet. It was so wet that I couldn't use regular sandpaper. I had to use wet dry sandpaper. And it's still a little damp, but not bad. It's getting really thin on the bottom. So I had to leave all of the draw marks, all the blue stain from the draw marks in the piece to save the piece.
Now what are you going to do to clean off the base? What's your
I'll
routine?
carve it and I'll carve this off by hand and sand it out by hand.
Huh.
Okay, all over here are bull blanks that I took from Rhode Island. So some of them are 15, 20 years old.
This is behind the lathe. Yeah, so under the tool rack.
Yeah. So this one is dated 2005.
I mean, it's been there for 15 years. Are you ever going to turn it?
Yeah, probably. Only because it's cherry. It's a hollow form, and I don't much like turning hollow forms. But
Can you put that back on the lathe? You can. You lift the tenon. You got two
I left the
tenons.
tenon.
Yeah.
There's a dead center there.
Yeah.
So I can put it on the lathe and chew up the tenon and get it to spin again. The idea with this piece was to put an ebony ring on the top, but it's on the list of things to do. This is an anomaly. This is a piece of worm-eaten butternut, and I had this stabilized 20, 25 years ago. So it's been impregnated with acrylic. To turn it is like turning rocks. So it's one of these things. It's on my list of things to do. A lot of these 2-inch blanks that you see wrapped in plastic in here came from Roy. When he moved, he wanted everybody to come take wood.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take the wood, but because it was Roy, I took the wood. And one of these days I have in mind to make a number of platters. This is a piece of elm burl, pretty nice stuff. This also came from Rhode Island.
So that has no anchor seal on it. That just was turned in '99. And if you ever get around to it again, you can turn a finished piece out of it.
Yep.
But you have to store it meanwhile.
Yep. It looks like a nice piece of burl. This is the way I got it from him. And I haven't decided what to do with it yet. I'm thinking it's going to be a bowl with 2 handles, or at least 1 handle. But that's on the list of things to do as well. Yeah, I would turn it this way to turn handles,
Yeah.
and then mount it on the
Where's the bowl opening going to be?
right here.
In there. What would happen if the bowl opening was on the other side of the log?
There was no burl.
Would you go down into the burrow?
You would, but it's a lot further journey than that. So what I've decided to do is that pieces that are important to me personally, either I've carried them around a long time, they're from people that I knew or people that I know. The piece of holly I showed you before came from Bob Gockenauer. Okay, so this is a piece Bob Gockenauer gave to me when we were still having meetings in his garage shop. He had turned some holly, and I said, "Geez, Bob, I really like that holly." He gave me this piece. I roughed it out, and that's still in that condition. So what I've decided to do is the pieces that were important to me. This is a piece of camphor wood. Came from, do you remember Tony Cortese from the board? He sent me this piece of camphor from Florida. Now that's from the time I was on the board. I don't know how long ago that was. But I said, I'm going to turn it because Tony took the trouble to send it to me. These pieces of wood, these are 2 cores from a larger bowl. I got these when I was working at Full Circle in Litchfield, Connecticut. And the other thing that I make and I store are this stuff for tricks. Okay, on the second shelf here are all pieces that are earmarked for magic tricks. They're wrapped in plastic, not because I'm keeping the moisture in, but because they're so old that they're dry and I'm keeping moisture out. So that's why those are there, like that. These up here, you can pan up here. These Cocobolo pieces, 4x4 by 24, Constantines of the Bronx. Okay, so I don't know when Constantines was still in the Bronx.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So that's where those came from. There's a piece of Bubinga. Every once in a while when I had a little extra money, I would just happen to drive by on the way home from work, just, you know, offhandedly, and I would stop in, and of course I would buy something. Mother-in-law tongue, or woman's tongue. It's one of the pieces I mailed home from the Bahamas. When we were in the Bahamas on Sundays, I had bought a little chainsaw, and we rented a car. We would drive around the island, see what we could find. If I could find wood, I'd cut it up, pack it up, and send it home. And this is one of those pieces. But it's like turning pepper. It's really hard on my sinuses. There, on the first shelf, here, is the other half of that log.
So how many pieces do you think you have in here?
Well, on this table, I have 30 bowls. A lot of them are...
You laughed at me for my lifetime supply of wood.
Yeah, but I didn't laugh. I was laughing because I know what you're going through. Sycamore burl underneath
the table. And 30 or so bowls on top of the table.
Yeah.
And then a whole lot of miscellaneous materials over there in the corner.
Yeah.
And then all these, you're so careful about labeling this stuff, I'm amazed. And you remember everything, what, you know, this was this, and I got it from this guy. I couldn't do that.
Well, that's what's important to me. I mean, a piece of oak is a piece of oak. But if I got a piece of oak from you, that would be special.
Black ash burl.
I was buying it from a fellow up in Minnesota who was going out and auctioning this stuff off. No, it's not black ash burl. It looks like madrone. So the fact that it stayed that long in pretty good shape is a miracle. So I think it's madrone. So I take all the pieces, put them all back together. I don't usually wrap it in plastic. I'll stick it in a bag with shavings. And when it gets dry enough, it'll get wrapped in plastic for storage. This is a piece of that pin oak that I showed you before. So this is a nest of 3 sets. This is for the guy that gave me the wood. There's a fellow up at the Nutmeg Woodturners League. His name was Eddie Flannery, Irish fella. He retired back to Ireland, and he asked me for something, some piece of wood or some help or whatever. I forget exactly what. And he said, well, what do you want in return? I said, turn me something. So he turned me a set of segmented candlesticks out of walnut and maple. Pretty nice job that he did. And I said, oh, geez, Ernie, when he gave it to me, I said, you didn't have to do this. He said, a promise made is a debt unpaid. And I carried that with me to this day.
So if somebody gives you a block of wood, they're actually laying an obligation on you.
That's right.
Do you feel that in your soul?
I feel that in my heart, yeah.
In your heart? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect people, well, I mean, I can expect people to give me wood for no particular reason. But when somebody in a wood turning group or within my circle of influence needs help or wants to give me something, I feel a propensity to return the favor. It's like my father used to say, we Italians, we take care of our friends and we take care of our enemies.
Angelo, thank you, really. This is terrific.